You are currently 10,994 meters below the surface. To reach this depth, you have been descending for 4 hours. The last trace of sunlight disappeared 9,794 meters ago. The pressure surrounding you right now is 1,100 times what you felt this morning. That number is not a metaphor. At 1,100 atmospheres, an unprotected human body does not drown. It compresses. The temperature of the water around you is 1.8 degrees Celsius. It has been 1.8 degrees Celsius at this depth for as long as instruments have been recording. You are at the deepest point on this planet, and something is moving on the sediment floor beneath you. Here is what the record shows. The location is called Challenger Deep. It sits within the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean at coordinates 11 degrees 22 minutes north, 142 degrees 35 minutes east. The depth 10,994 meters. If you place the tallest mountain on this planet at the bottom of this trench, its peak would sit more than 2,000 meters below your current position. The pressure you are experiencing right now, 1,100 atmospheres, is equivalent to 50 fully loaded Boeing 737 aircraft stacked onto every single square centimeter of your body. Not spread across your body. Every square centimeter, the water temperature is 1.8 degrees Celsius. It does not fluctuate with season. It does not respond to surface conditions. It is, by every thermal measurement ever taken here, fixed. There is no light at this depth, not low light, not darkness, the absence of a single photon originating from the sun, and yet, fewer than 25 people have stood where you are standing now. More people have stood on the surface of the moon. The first humans to reach this depth arrived on January 23, 1960. Their names were Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh. They descended in a submersible called the Trieste. They expected to find nothing. The model at the time was clear. Pressure this extreme, temperature this low, darkness this absolute. No complex life could survive here. The descent took 4 hours and 47 minutes. When the Trieste touched the sediment floor, Piccard pressed his face to the porthole. Through 12 centimeters of glass at 10,916 meters, he reported seeing a flatfish. A fish, not bacteria, not chemical residue. A fish, moving, oriented, functioning, at a pressure where the protein structures that constitute its cellular machinery should, by every model available in 1960, have denatured. The scientific community spent the next decade debating whether he had seen a fish at all. The leading counter-hypothesis, a sea cucumber, misidentified through a scratched porthole under extreme psychological stress. The debate has not been formally resolved. What is not disputed? Something was moving, and that was only the first problem. Between 1960 and the present day, 7 major expeditions have descended to Challenger Deep. Each one returned with a specimen the previous expedition could not account for. The inventory has been open for 64 years. It has not closed. Here is what the record currently shows. The first organism documented at Haddle depth, the zone below 6,000 meters, that consistently draws scientific attention, is not large. It is 28 centimeters long. It is translucent. Its bones are not hard. Its skull is not solid. It is called Pseudoliparus swiri, the Haddal snailfish. In 2023, a camera trap lowered into the Izu-Ogasawara Trench filmed a specimen at 8,336 meters. That is the deepest vertebrate ever recorded. The pressure at 8,336 meters is 830 times surface atmospheric pressure. At that pressure, the organic molecules that constitute most known life begin to break down. The process is called denaturation. Proteins lose their structure. Enzymes stop functioning. Cells fail. The Haddal snailfish does not fail. The mechanism that prevents this failure is a molecule called trimethylamine N-oxide. TMAO. TMAO stabilizes protein structure under pressure. In the Haddal snailfish, its concentration in cellular tissue scales directly with depth. The deeper the specimen, the higher the TMAO. At 8,336 meters, the TMAO concentration is the highest ever measured in a living vertebrate. At 10,994 meters, the depth you are currently at, the required TMAO concentration would exceed any measurement on record. Whether that concentration is achievable in biological tissue is not known. Whether a vertebrate exists at this depth is not known. The camera traps have not yet reached you here. The second organism the record documents at Haddal depth requires a different kind of attention. It is called a xenophyophore. It is a single cell, not a colony of cells, not a tissue. One cell, a single biological unit that reaches a diameter of 10 centimeters. Your fist is approximately 10 centimeters across. Xenophyophores live on the sediment floor of the Mariana Trench at depths exceeding 10,600 meters. They have no brain, no nervous system, no organs in any conventional sense. They are, by every measure of biological classification, one of the simplest life forms that exist on this planet. They are also among the largest individual cells ever documented. The mechanism by which a single cell sustains itself at this scale, at this pressure, at this temperature, has not been fully characterized. The third organism the record documents behaves in a way that the available models do not fully explain. It is called Hirundellea gigas, the Hadal amphipod. It resembles a small shrimp. It is approximately 3 centimeters in length. It lives in dense populations across the Hadal sediment floor. In 2014, camera traps baited with mackerel were lowered to 10,890 meters. The first amphipods arrived at the bait within 3 hours. 3 hours, at a depth where no light exists, where no current carries scent in any direction that surface models predict, where every sensory mechanism known to function in crustaceans should be operating at reduced capacity. How they located the bait from within the surrounding sediment has not been explained. The data does not support any detection mechanism currently in the literature. The fourth organism requires only one sentence. At every Hadal depth yet surveyed, including the deepest camera deployments in the Mariana Trench, the dominant visible biomass is not a predator. It is a sea cucumber, an animal that swallows sediment and excretes it behind itself. The apex of the food chain at the deepest point on this planet eats mud. This is where the data becomes unusual. In 2017, a research team at the University of Newcastle published an analysis of amphipod samples collected at 10,890 meters in the Mariana Trench. Every specimen contained polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. The concentration, 50 times higher than PCB levels recorded in the Liaohe River, one of the most industrially contaminated river systems on Earth. Polychlorinated biphenyls were banned in most countries in 1979. They are present 50 years later at the deepest point on this planet. The mechanism is not complicated. Cold water is dense. Dense water sinks. As surface water cooled over decades, it carried what had been introduced into it: persistent organic pollutants that do not break down, bound to particles of organic matter, and descended. The Mariana Trench is, by its geometry, a collecting point. Every contaminant that reaches the deep ocean eventually reaches the deepest basin. The record from 2017 shows the most remote location on this planet is also the most concentrated repository of a class of chemicals humans produced, used, and banned within a single century. In 2019, Victor Vescovo descended to Challenger Deep in a submersible called the Limiting Factor. He reached 10,928 meters, the deepest crewed descent at that time. The first objects his cameras recorded on the sediment floor were a plastic bag and candy wrappers. The biological survey from that expedition identified 4 candidate species not previously documented at that depth. It also confirmed elevated concentrations of persistent organic pollutants in every biological sample recovered. The expedition lasted 11 hours at depth. The findings required months of analysis. The analysis produced new questions faster than it resolved existing ones. There are 3 things the record cannot currently explain. The first involves light. ROV footage collected during multiple Hadal expeditions, including footage from the Mariana Trench below 9,000 meters, contains brief, faint light pulses that do not correspond to any bioluminescent species documented at that depth. The pulses are not instrument artifacts. They have been reviewed across multiple independent deployments. One hypothesis attributes them to triboluminescence, light produced by mechanical stress on crystals in the sediment under tectonic pressure. This hypothesis has not been confirmed. As of the most recent expedition, the source has not been identified. The second thing the record cannot explain involves bacteria. Hadal bacteria, piezophils, organisms that require extreme pressure to function, were first recovered from depth in the latter half of the 20th century. They did not survive the retrieval. Not from temperature change, not from light exposure, from pressure reduction. The bacteria collected at 10,000 meters require extreme pressure to maintain cellular function, surface pressure. The pressure of the environment in which every laboratory on this planet operates is lethal to them. Every sample that has reached the surface has arrived as a dead specimen. Everything currently known about Haddle bacteria, their metabolism, their reproduction, their role in the Haddle ecosystem, is inferred from organisms that were alive when the sampling device closed around them and dead by the time it reached the ship. We cannot study them in a living state. The act of retrieving them ends them. The third unresolved item in the record is the oldest. January 23, 1960. Jacques Picard, porthole, 10,916 meters. A flatfish. Moving. In the 64 years since that observation, 7 major expeditions have deployed cameras and sampling equipment at Challenger Deep. No flatfish, no fish of any species adapted for benthic locomotion, has been filmed or recovered from that depth. The sea cucumber hypothesis remains the leading explanation. It has not been confirmed. The record from January 23, 1960 has not been reinterpreted. It has not been recanted. It remains open. There is one more thing the record shows. In 2023, acoustic sensors deployed at Challenger Deep logged a sequence of signals at frequencies below 20 Hz. Infrasound. The signal pattern does not match any cataloged biological source. It does not match tectonic activity signatures on record for the region. The data was recovered. It was analyzed. It was published in a technical appendix to a broader oceanographic survey. It received 4 citations. No dedicated expedition has been funded to return. The signals have not recurred in subsequent deployments. They have not been explained. The deepest point on this planet has been reached by fewer than 25 people. The inventory of what it contains has been accumulating for 64 years. It remains incomplete. The depth still has more to show you. The work of documenting this takes time. If you want access to the next file before it surfaces, the archive is open. Next, a specimen was collected at 4,200 meters in 2002. Before its discovery, marine biologists could not explain why whale skeletons disappeared at depth. The answer had been there the entire time, undocumented, unnamed, and eating.